What did you guys think?
We have two really good candidates.
Yeah. Yep. Really good. Both good interviews. Do you want to go by candidate? I mean, do you want to talk about Mr. Menton first, who was the first interview of the evening?
A couple of things that stood out to me with Mr. Menton. I just highlighted a couple of things. One was on question number 5 about, how students have a lot of options for school, including online, open enrollment. And maybe it's just because in my business, this is what we really believe to be true is word of mouth. And just, leading by example and just getting that word out there. I like that answer. I also felt like question 11, I also highlighted that, and I'm sorry, you probably don't all have a copy of the questions. That question was, what would your first steps be in building positive relationships with staff and community residents and superintendent? And I liked what he said about listening to understand where people are coming from and not just listening. And I think that's one thing that we have struggled with here, and people feel like they're not being heard. So I think that was important. And then let's read through this really quick because I don't know why I highlighted this one.
To go on the listen to understand part, I remember my dad telling us one time when he was teaching, and he was a shop teacher, so he didn't necessarily always have the cream of the crop kids, or so they called them, the cream of the crop kids, in his classes. And this is before they started cutting all of these things. And a lot of kids acted out. It wasn't always a great day for him with kids, because some were having really, really bad days. And I remember him telling us, you don't know where this kid's been. You don't know if they had breakfast. You don't know if their parents are beating them, if they didn't get much sleep last night because they had to take care of their sibling, whatever it might be. And that's when he said that, that's what popped into my head was we got to listen to people where they're at. We don't know what their experiences are. We don't know what the background is for all of it. And so I apologize to people if I have been that way. I think I have to remember that. I have to keep it grounded, but I think that's a really good foundation is listen to understand people for who they are and for what they're doing. And we haven't all had the same experiences. So we have to respect what people are. And you have to respect even if you don't agree. You still have to respect what they believe, because that's what makes them who they are. All right, you other things? Sorry about that.
I highlighted question 12 when it was the two major issues that Bold is facing. The one that stood out to me is that we have to work with each other, not against each other, and be, the trusting and the clear and transparency. And I know that one thing with Jim is that he does realize, he does know what's going on here, and he knows that is an issue. And for me, that was like a big thing. Like, yep, this is what we have to do. This is where we need to go.
That was the other one that I highlighted.
Yeah.
I actually really liked what he said about question number 1, actually.
Me too.
3 reasons
Yeah.
what you like superintendent, like to be superintendent, or why. And ultimately, students was number 1. And I believe, and he said staff and community is 2 and 3, but students have always come first in Jim's eyes, and he has built tremendous relationships with our students, and again, staff, and I believe he has with community members as well. I believe he's built a very good culture here, and there's very good team and unity when it comes to staff and the administrators. I just believe he has a way of empowering, and I really appreciated that he did put the students first though when he answered that question, because that's why we're here.
Well, and to piggyback off that, when he said the best part of his day is standing out there and watching them come in, or being in the lunch line serving them food.
That was going to be my answer, Melissa. I also liked what he said in number 1. It just shows that. Well, and obviously he knows us here, but I think he probably would say that if he was going to go be superintendent somewhere else as well. So
usually go and interview people, first things I look at are your first impression. What's the first impression you're gonna have with someone? So the first impression I get is you look at their application. Applications tell a lot about a person, how thorough they are, how much information they give you, their references, everything about it. That's your first impression. So with Mr. Minton, I went through and I was looking at his application, and the first thing I was very disappointed. Employment desired, he put nothing on there. And then if he put his last employment, he still currently works at Westbrook Pro High School in Westbrook.
Can I just, yeah, I
Well,
just, I
no,
don't,
but I just want to go through this
okay,
process.
I can explain
But
some
I-
of that too.
Okay, so then I get going, and then some of the dates aren't filled in, and things just are not clicking here. Then I go and I was kind of disappointed. His Spanish license was expired, and then I went and I called his references, and his references didn't even know that he was applying for the job. And the one thing they always tell you when you fill out a resume, always make sure your references know you, and know you're applying for the job, because you're the ones that are going to tell them how good you are and great you are. So then I thought, okay, I know Mr. Minton. I've been around him for years. So I treated his app as I had no clue who he was. And just like I would anybody, even when in the past when I've hired people, even though I know them, I will go back into their background in every reference. I follow through. I follow through the diligence. I do the process. So with that being said, I went through and I called the references. The one reference told me he would rather not say anything, which that's fine. He said, I didn't even know he was applying, but I would rather not say anything. And I said, I respect that, I appreciate that. But then I got to the other two references, and they were so fun to talk to. And they gave Mr. Minton a very good recommendation. They did say that he's going to be the cheerleader for the school. Jim has got a soft heart, he's very compassionate, he cares about the kids. His weakest, I asked all of them, what do you think his strongest point is? And they said his personality. And both of them told me that. And his weakest is that Jim cares so much that he does spend a lot of time where he works, and that he doesn't take time for himself. And so I'm just being downright honest with everything I've got. The one gentleman told me Jim has a lot of energy. He's authentic. What you see is what you get. The only weakness this gentleman said that he could, and he said Jim is good at this. Jim loves to be with the kids. Jim wants to be around the kids. That's his passion, is to have those kids around him. The only problem he said I would see in that is Jim likes to procrastinate. He likes to wait till the last minute, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, yep, I see that in an application, but whatever. But he said Jim will take a task, but you gotta prod him and push him a little bit, because he likes to be with the kids. His passion is the kids. So with that being said, I see that I'm worried that he loves to be out there so much. That is, if he gets the job, is he really going to like it? Is he really going to enjoy that other part that's not so much fun, that really isn't that much fun? You know,
Yeah.
that scares me, that he's going to be out with the kids and some of the other things might not maybe get done. But that's not a bad thing.
No,
He'd be out with
that's
the
fair.
kids.
That's
And
fair.
it's only being fair. I mean, I'm
Right.
just putting out what I got. So those are concerns for me that maybe things won't get done, but his passion, his Mr. Cheerleader, and they both said very good things about him, and they said he was good, but they both said too that he has no experience, and that would be a worry of theirs, but
Mhm.
Patrick doesn't
Right,
really.
right.
Either. So
I just wanted to and I didn't ask Jim exactly what the issue was, but he's an internal candidate, so he was not able to just go to the website and like submit an application. He said he had to kind of go in through the back door, and that's maybe why it wasn't filled out all perfectly. He had a hard time getting through because it's through the website, so he had a hard time getting in there to get things filled out. But I wish I would have had him explain that. That is on me. The references though, yeah, he should have let them know. I mean, that's just So
But I mean, it is what it is. But
right,
I mean,
yep,
one of them didn't want to say anything, and the other ones were great, and I really did have nice conversations.
well, the
with
person,
them, so.
kind of felt probably on the spot, right?
Yeah, and the one guy
You
goes
know?
to me, he goes, okay, let me get this straight. You're on the board, and you already know Jim. Why are you calling me?
Well.
And I said, just like I just told you guys, when I'm gonna do a job, I'm gonna follow through, and I pretended like I didn't know who he was. That's what I do.
Mhm.
And it's anybody I interview or do anything with, I mean, that's our job
Right.
to do that. So, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I had more fun.
Thanks
than
for
references.
thanks for doing that, Sandy. Anybody else on Mr. Menton?
I can comment too on just he knows what issues we have in this district, and we have, at this level, and he's putting his name in there because he wants to be here, and he cares, and I think there's a longevity here that he would like to stay committed to with our district in our community. It's not just a stepping stone to move somewhere else. He sees what Old has, and I don't think that he would put himself in this position if he wasn't up to the task.
Yeah.
So.
Agree. Anybody else? Anything on Mr. Menton?
I like when he talked on number 6, what should our graduates know and be able to do before they leave bowl. He talked extensively on state standards for a while, and then how he wanted them to have a well-rounded education. Be introduced to some things they're maybe not comfortable with. Maybe introduced to some things they wouldn't normally do. He said welding. I would like to learn how to weld too, so if anybody would like to show me that, I just one time would like to learn that myself. But just as an example, he used that. So I like that. If I go to something Patrick said, in researching our school, that he said it looked like the staff and the admin team worked really well together, which is a impression of Mr. Menton as well, I believe, when he did his research on our school. He said that it looked like that we had good staff here. He said the problem with the school is the communication side of it with the community.
Any other comments about Mr. Menton? If not, we can move on to Mr. Bierman. So if you remember our first interview with him, the first question was, basically tell us about yourself. And it was an epic answer. So it was really long. And I think
somebody wrote that.
yes, they did. I know. One of the community staff or student members said epic answer, and I said yes, it was. Yeah. He did that on number 2 for me. It just was I kind of lost it a few, like where he was going, and it was epic. And I think he kind of it was a good answer. It just I kind of lost it because it got long. I know he wanted to get that information out there, which is good.
One thing I like about Patrick is and he said this in our first interview too, is that there's no just a job.
Mm-hmm.
That really,
Yep.
that was really one thing to say. One thing that scares me is I don't know if he's committed for the long term. I don't know how long he's planning to stay.
The one thing I had on here as a like was on question number 13. It's where do you see the roles of school board members in the districted size? These are where you have to work directly, leave, just make that one-on-one conversation. Like, let's be positive, praising, be together as one. That impressed me. And that the admin make it happen, and we have to be able to trust the admin.
He seems to be a very positive leader. I was a little concerned. I don't like saying any of the negative stuff, but I liked what he talked about, the infrastructure, to attract students in by providing the right environment, so that he's looking at our school and our facilities to help draw, even though that's been mentioned that it won't, and to retain students. Students just need to know that they're cared about. That's how you keep them there. They're more of a feel thing. You got to get them their education, but they just have to feel loved. My concern was in number 2, when he went to things. The question is, what influence motivated you to become? This is the epic section.
Epic answer.
In particular, superintendent, please include individuals. There was a couple times where he said, it just didn't fit or feel right. So then he looked to move somewhere else. And that, I want it just to not feel right, and then you're going to go find something else.
That's a really good point. I didn't pick up on that, but I struggled with his first answer. It's probably an okay answer. I mean, definitely. It just was very, focused in. And so I'm trying not to compare, but I definitely like Mr. Menson's answer to that question better, because it really spoke more about Bold and less about him as a person. So
That was a thought that I had too. It just appeared that it was more about, himself. A lot of his answers were gearing back to just him and not about the betterment of our students and staff.
Which is kind of what we
I
heard
liked
from
a lot
the
of what
community
answers.
group a little bit, which I didn't really pick up on the first one.
Number 1 especially.
yeah, and number 1 was very self-focused. Right. I know, but I guess if I'm comparing, I'm just saying I like Mr. Men's answer better. So
I felt their answers with the strategic plan were very similar. Obviously with Mr. Menton, he has already built relationships here, and that is one thing that, and anybody new wouldn't have that already in place. Like at number 11, he'd have to take the time to get to know people first before he could do anything. Just a difference in that answer. But they had, a lot of the same ideas of going to the businesses, having the downtown talks, and the meet and greets, working closer with the leadership teams. I thought that was very similar.
They both said be approachable.
Yes.
I like Mr. Bierman's, is it Bierman?
yes.
I liked his answer about number 4, the strategic plan. He said it's a living document. I like that. He said you need to live it and to reevaluate it and make adjustments. I thought that was really good. If you go to 13, see what you see as well as school board members. I liked his answer there too, working with the superintendent, developing timelines, expect briefings. I like the 2. Being transparent and with community support. I also liked his answer to number 15. What are the top 3 things the school board can do to help you become a successful superintendent? And I love the idea that he welcomes evaluation and constructive criticism along with guidance. That really impressed me. I did go through his application, and I went through and I wrote down a bunch of stuff that stood out to me along with our interview the other night. And I wrote about 10 things down, I'd like to share them. Number one, I feel that he meets the criteria because he has an active licensure. He has 6 years of assistant superintendent and 6 years of principal at the elementary school, Kennedy Elementary, the pre-K through 5, where he's in charge of 740 students and 148 staff. Number two, he created and implemented numerous new courses for high school business education department. Number three, he created and instituted a safety patrol program. He secured the funding for that and completed installation of a pedestrian crossing and warning systems. Number four, he has a double major in business marketing and he taught business ed for 9.5 years. Number five, he has had an oversight of a 3-year building renovation on a 1959 building. He helped coordinate and update the building with the strategic plan, and he has a history with projects and contractors. 6, he has civic involvement. Some of them that I didn't list them all, but there's a service learning day. He's part of the Dubsey School, which develops, he was instrumental in developing a guest teacher role to promote attendance for the school and school communications. He developed a program to network the local churches and to support the student needs. So it was the school and the churches together. Number 7, he's a retired military person of 21 years, and he said he worked in the Army Division. He was 11 years as a recruiter and was promoted to first sergeant. He was awarded top recruiting company and battalion in the nation for 2001. I thought that was pretty impressive. And he received the General E. Morrill Award for leadership. That really stood out in 2004, and that's attained by less than 2% of all soldiers who serve. So he's definitely a good leader. He has diverse experience in the military and first responder for medical and firefighting. Has prepared him to be calm and in control in all situations. That's a statement from him. 8, he's passionate. He strives for positive solutions. He wants to build relationships that must have trust. He kept talking about keep moving forward by constantly collaborating. He says his greatest strengths are being his diversity, his leadership, positive solutions, and keep moving forward is 1. Being consistent and approachable to each stakeholder group allows for development of trusting relationships and growth of a district. I thought that was huge. That's a statement of his own. So, I would like to make a motion to offer Patrick a contract for Gold Schools for our next superintendent because I think he fits all the criteria.
I'll second that. I do like him.
Okay, motion is made by Teresa and seconded by Sandy. Any discussion? I liked all of what you said. I still, for me, 5 years of relationship here is an awfully big thing to get around. Jim is going, and this is also, Jim is going through his exit interview for his licensure on Monday. And then after that, the paperwork goes into MDE and he will be licensed. So that is something that's happening. Probably also something we should have asked him about while he was here. I guess I just offer that up. Any other discussion?
I thank you for all those points, and I think those are all really good points. And I agree with, I think that he is a good leader. I am gonna go back to what the community group said, and they didn't have, for the most part, I don't feel like they had a grade 5 with him.
Well, if we want to go back to the community group, I didn't see a lot of positives from Mr. Minton either. Like, look, I got that whole pile here.
Actually, I mean,
Probably
just
go through 'em,
just
because
yeses and no's, they were kind of even.
Yeah.
What
I for him.
I counted, Mr. Menton had Because it was asked at the bottom of the form, would you recommend him, yes or no?
Some of them were blank.
Some-
never met.
Yep. Nope. I got 14.
I did not.
How many were on? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
There would have been one more for Patrick for sure than Jim because one of our students had to leave for track
Okay.
and didn't get to Mr.
Okay. So what I got,
I did not turn
what
mine
I
in.
had turned in, Jim had 8 yeses, 4 nos, and 3. It was either a question mark or they didn't mark anything. Patrick had 7 yeses, 2 nos, and 5 either they didn't mark anything or they had question mark. So just offering that up. I kind of look at that as fairly even. So
From what I got from the community, I think they wanted to see a change, something different. That's what I felt from what I heard that night. That for us to move forward, we have to make that change and I think start building that trust with something new.
I've been hearing that too. I also will not argue, but I will make the point that I think that moving Jim to that position is going to be a new role for him. And I think that he admitted in his first interview, that we have made mistakes. And he wants to move in a different direction and not make those same mistakes twice.
And just reading some of those, like I sat and read them last night, I don't think that everybody spoke up that it's not everybody's comfortable speaking up. So I mean, I did read positives for both of them, negatives for both of them. So I think I agree. Just even in the readings, I agree that was kind of the same thing.
It
There,
was the same for all the candidates.
yeah,
There
absolutely.
was
And
there was
good
no
qualities
there was
for
no
Yeah.
wow moments for like this is it.
Right.
You would hope that there was just an aha moment where
Yeah.
either one of them. Experience you have to throw out the door because neither one of them has experience in this position. When you talk about some of the things that he did with his business class development, that was in Wisconsin when they offered him the job up out of nowhere to start up his class. So he had to develop it. That was good. They gave him a job. That's fantastic. Oversight of the building construction. He didn't set any of the parameters up for it. He just was there during the process. He was an assistant. He worked with the churches through the truancy because he went out to get people to come into class, and I thought that was fantastic that he went to the community to do things. I think all of our people that were interviewed all talked about how they worked through referendums and how they made referendums happen where they were, and how they went out and they had meetings at township halls and they went to coffee shops and they had meetings at schools and they did all the things that they had to do. This was a different animal, not completely, but in a big way, because we tried to do a referendum during the pandemic, and so you couldn't go to coffee shops and you couldn't go do some of those things. So I think that has to be weighed in there at some point. I know some people have criticized what I said about Jim being my friend, and so I think he deserved an opportunity to speak again or have another interview. I don't downplay his 5 years of experience here. I think that's fantastic. I've yet to have anybody tell me that he's bad here, that he's done anything bad. I meet with people or I talk to people on the phone today, and they say good things about it. I hear a lot of people. We talk to different people. Everybody I talked to today, not everybody, all but one person I talked to today said, and in the last week have said they think he's good. They think he's really good, and they would like to give him the opportunity. So I'm not saying you're telling an untruth. I'm just saying that the people I talked to, or the people that approached me, they didn't say that he was bad. Teresa even said, not even like you say good things. I apologize for that. Teresa had said at the last meeting, Mr. Menton is a good principal, and she loves him. She thinks he does a great job with the robotics and with the principal job that he has here. That's how good he is here. That's the relationships he has here. If he doesn't get this job and he would become the principal, why would he have any reason to stay here? now that he's licensed to be something else bigger, now that he's licensed to be the next step. I think he's put in his time, and I think he's built the relationships, and I don't think he's done anything wrong. I don't know why we look at what he's doing. He wasn't in charge of it. So I don't know why we look at it as a negative, but that's just my perspective on it.
Well, even he's even said, and with great reservation, because I don't think he would disrespect Mr. Moransoy, but he did say there are things that he would change. ICS being one of them. It could be, not that he has anything against it, but if that's what we need to go forward, that's what we need to go forward. So he realizes that there's things. You've heard that he and Dale have had disagreements. So he has different ideas, but I think it's a respect for your boss that.
I think what we do need to do is take both applicants, put the blindfolders on, do not see them as somebody you know. You can't do that when you have a job. It's very important. This is the biggest decision we're ever going to make here. And when you look at a candidate, you can't look out at their friends or neighbors or whatever, warm and fuzzy stuff. You have to look at point A, point B. Sometimes you're going to hurt people, and sometimes you're going to be their best friend. But every one of us at our jobs have worked with people that we've hired. Would you hire somebody over here that really didn't have a whole lot of experience but was the greatest, nicest person? Or would you go and hire this person that had a little bit more experience and had good backing and lots of good things to say? You have to look at their background. We've got more information on Mr. Bierman as background, of the things that we're looking for. Not saying he's been a superintendent, he's got the qualities, but the things that he's dealt with in Wilmer, he's got more on his resume. Put your blindfolders on, pretend you don't see Mr. Mittens. You gotta do that when you're looking at someone for a job this important in our community. This is a big deal. And I know he's our friend, he's great and wonderful, but you can't look at it.
I'm not looking at it as
I don't think anybody
what
is.
I'm looking at it as is the experience and the relationships. That relationship is huge for us, and we need that right now. And I have faith. I've watched him take the naughtiest of naughties and make them well-rounded kids.
Okay,
So
let me read you something from Wilmer. When I did Mr. Bierman's exactly the way I did with Mr. Mitten. I went through from head to toe in his resume. Okay, I think Melissa said something about, well, he didn't like it, he left. Well, let me tell you, the first place he was at, or the last place he's been at was Wilmer. He's been there 6 years. Prior to that, he was 9 years at Baldwin, Wisconsin. Prior to that, 21 years in the service and 4 years at Wisconsin. He's not a 1 to 2 year person. You take Mr. Mittens.
And Sandy, I
go
never
back
said that
because-
about him.
I said that.
I'm not sure what you're
And
saying.
go back to
Sandy, I
Mr.
said
Mittens.
that.
He was at Westbrook for 2 years and staff reductions. Then prior to that, he was at Nicollet. Did not have a good relationship with administration. He left after 1 year. Prior to that, he was at Benson High School. He budget reductions again. Prior to that,
How long
he
was
was
he
at
at?
Benson, reductions again. If you've got a great employee, you're not going to reduce him all the time. That's what scares me. It's like, but,
The reduction is
Okay,
all
Miss-
based on
right.
years served.
Okay, so anyway, then I go to Mr. Bierman. I called his immediate principal up in Wilmer. When I talked to her, she said, yeah, I've seen it in the paper this morning. She goes, I'm sick. She told me, she said, that man is the glue to our school. He's amazing. She said, our teachers go to him. He's a great collaborator. He's very important to our staff. He's a great person, a good listener, and he's always looking to do better, always better. And she said he digs into challenges He's wonderful with conflicts. He's very comfortable in his skin. He's what you see is what you get, kind of like Mr. Mitten. Challenges drive him, she said. And he's very good. He sees a challenge and it drives him. He just digs right into it. He doesn't sit back and go, well, I hope it fixes itself. So that, to me, is a plus. She was about in tears when I called and talked to her because she goes, I shouldn't say it, but I hope he doesn't get it because it's going to be good for Bold and bad for us because he's that good. Then I talked to another reference that he had, and he told me, he said, if Patrick gets that job, he can come to me for anything. He said, I will help him, I'll steer him, I'll be there for him. He said, he was involved in the referendum. He interned under this gentleman, and he said he's very good at his job. Coordinating and plan, he helped coordinate and plan the referendum and their bond. Very outgoing, great with kids. He's very natural with kids. Kids love him. They come to him and talk to him. He worked with the state funding. He was in a task force. And this gentleman also said if he gets the job and he'll help us because he's got a facilitator that helped them up there with their referendum bond. He said, I'll give him the information and let him go run with it. And Mr. Holm, the superintendent up there, said whatever he needs, we'll help him with. The guy is great, very personable. He's in one of their largest, most versatile elementaries up there. And I said, well, how do you run those? He said, well, we've got our superintendent, a principal, what do they call it, vice principal or
Assistant. Because that's what he is
principal.
right now.
And he said, we used to have a dean of students, but we got rid of that. That was a waste of time and waste of money. He said, it doesn't do us any good to have a dean of students because he said, they can't do anything. So we went to a principal and assistant principal. That way, they could help with the excess of the kids. So he said, the only one maybe downfall for him would be he has really no superintendent experience, but he said, I don't think the other guy does either. And I said, no. But he said, I know everybody up here would be right on his right hand helping him. He worked with a lot of special services up there. And he said, we let him run, told him what we wanted, and he took off and he did it. No problems there. Greets kids every morning, great communicator with kids. He's very fair about discipline. He's got empathy. He volunteers for everything. He's a great volunteer. He gets kids and staff and members of the community and everybody around him in there to work together. And the guy that's up there told me, he said, he's so good at it. He said that he's naturally good at it. He doesn't even have to work at it. He just gets everybody and talks to people and just starts getting everybody involved. He's got a strong sense of self and he's got very good values. He takes time to listen. This gentleman told me, he goes, he's a great listener. He'll listen. He listens before he makes a decision. Communicative, very effective. And he was the other one. He said it'll be a loss for our district if he gets the job, but it'll be great for you guys. So there you go.
Sandy, did you talk to anybody here about Jim at all? Any staff members?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any?
Do you really want to hear it?
I talked to people too.
Two staff members call me on the phone and say, please don't hire him because it will be bad for the district. One I saw downtown, and I don't even know this person very well, but I knew they were a staff member. And she was about in tears because she said, please don't hire him. And she said, it's going to be bad news for the school.
And I talked to a lot of people too, and I received some different messages. Kind of like Brian said, you just hear pros and cons to everybody.
Right. Both sides, correct.
And I mean, I can go through my list too. You know, it's both sides, and you know, the relationships that he's built, the culture is very good. He's honest and direct, empowering students and staff, passionate about his career. You know, the vision and plan. You know, he knows what that is, and he's not going to be afraid to take risks and to know what to work on and what we have to do to get better at what we are doing, our goals. He knows the district well and our current issues. He wants to see this school succeed. Collaboration. Jim has a great network to bounce ideas off of. His time as principal's allowed him to develop this group, but has always worked with different superintendents at Bold. This is a very positive thing, and he is able to draw on that experience. He handles difficult meetings very well with an enlightened attitude. I think we see that with his personality. He accesses people's perspectives on topics as a goal to make the most effective decision. He's willing to learn, listen, and improve. He's accessible, and and like I mentioned earlier, he wants to be here. He cares about Bold. He cares about the student staff, our communities. He's passionate about his career and improving the student's educational journey. He's visible, and you talked about that about the students. He loves the students. He's committed. I think that's huge for Jim. We all know it would be a learning curve, but you got to believe that he's up to the challenge, or he would not have been sitting here with us. And one comment that stuck out in my mind is we've had a 5-year interview with him. We know what he's about. He's a known quantity. There's way less unknowns with him than anybody else we bring in.
I'd like to make a comment. I think we're all very well aware of our U.S. military, and the reason I'm bringing that up is they don't just hand out awards to people just to hand them out. You really have to prove yourself, and I think we're looking for a leader, and he received a leadership award that's attained by less than 2% of all soldiers who serve. Is showing that he can lead. And I think in our situation, with what we have going on with our school district, the disconnect and everything, we need a very strong leader. And when the military decorates somebody with a medal like that, if that doesn't tell you who your leader is, I don't know what else does. I think that's the separation right there. If you're feeling they're both so close as being good in where they're at, we need the strong leader, and I think that puts Mr. Bierman way over here. I
Okay,
think we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking less.
okay. So currently we have a motion that was made and seconded to offer the contract to Patrick Bierman. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will vote. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Nay. Motion carries 2-5. Motion failed, sorry. So with that, would we entertain any other motions?
I make a motion that we dissolve this interview process for the evening and bring in the other candidates, because if we can't have a consensus, 100% consensus on a superintendent, we need to revisit this. This is too big of a deal to be split. And I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion has been made to stop for the evening and reconvene with more candidates. And
At that time, do we decide between all four then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that was my question. Are you saying bring in the other two? Or are you saying go like back to our board? What is your motion?
Well,
Back to the drawing board.
yeah, we have to go back to the drawing board then. We have to start all over.
all right, so the motion is basically to stop for the evening and go back to the drawing board, which I'm gonna write it better than that. Go back to begin process again. Does that sound right? Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing no discussion, we will vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. So we have 4-3. Motion carries. I don't know what that's gonna look like. We'll have to figure that out And I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, so I'll let you know when I know what's going on. So, when I figure out what's going on, that is.